but we've got quite a few teams, quite a few drivers that are going to be running at the same circuit, just under 2 miles in length. Donington Park has been around since the 1930s. The current iteration will be the Donington National Circuit. Dylan, it's a pretty good track to be racing at. You know, great corners such as Redgate, Hollywood, the Craner curves, the infamous Craner curves, and of course places like Starkeys and Schwantz, and then you've also got Roberts, which is the right-left chicane. It's really going to test the drivers tonight, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's my back garden. It's a circuit I know pretty well, and it's a classic British racing circuit. You couldn't find a better place to get touring car racing. I'm really looking forward to tonight. I do hope the drivers are as well, and it always produces good racing around here.
Indeed, we've got several teams. We've got Semi Racing, Virtual Reality Racing Club, Positive Perception Racing, ATE Motorsport, Gridfinder, Java Sim Esports, and Odyssey Racing League. Prizes up for grabs tonight. £50 cash prize for the winning driver and a £50 cash prize for the winning team. The car being used tonight is the 2020 Cupra Leon Competition, and also a big thank you to the Virtual Reality Racing Club for the modifications for the car. So what we're going to have a really interesting dynamic. It's none of these 3 races with a reverse top 10 with the ball being pulled out of a hat. No. We're going to have a 20-minute qualifying session. We're then going to have a 60-minute race. But also one of the best things about this is that the drivers will be able to choose between 3 different sets of tyres: soft, medium and hard compound. Also, having everyone in the same cars is going to be interesting, as qualifying is underway, and at the moment it's Dave Marshall from the Virtual Reality Racing Club that is leading the way on a 1 minute 8.427. One of the good things about this, Dylan, is that everyone in the equal machinery is really going to test the skills of the drivers, as Randy Wijaja locks up going into the old hairpin big time, as Marshall again goes quickest, 1 minute 8.179, and he's actually being followed by Positive Perception Motorsports Miles Dixon, who's less than, well, he's just over 0.3 of a second adrift. This is going to really test the drivers in terms of the same car, the same aspect. It's all about the driver's skill, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no handicaps of who's got the quicker car today. It is all about driver skill. There's no outside help with the machinery being a little bit quicker than the others around certain tracks. No, this is all down to which driver is the quickest, and it's really going to test which league, which drivers has the best competition, and really it's as fair as you can get when it comes to racing.
Exactly. For those wondering about the points that are going to be issued tonight, first it's 25 points for a victory, it's 18 points for second, 15 for third, 12 for fourth, 10 for fifth, and then we have 8 points for sixth, 6 points for seventh, 4 points for eighth, ninth it's 2 points, and 10th is 1 point. And it's good to see the YouTube chat already in full swing here tonight, and a big thank you for you all for joining us. Don't forget to hit the official like and subscribe button on the official Grid Finder YouTube channel. We ride on board with Lewis Edwards, who's just decided to on the start-finish straight return to garage. Mark Raddenbury, I remember that name for a long time ago. I've commentated on him quite a few times. He's currently P9 at the moment, just over 2.1 seconds off of the lightning fast pace set by Dave Marshall. One of the other things that we need to tell you is that the hybrid system has been initiated on these cars, so that's another added dimension, isn't it, Dylan? Because you're going to have that push to pass opportunity for tonight.
It adds a bit more strategy to the race as well. Which parts do you want to try and attack, and also adds defending. You have that little bit extra as well, so a bit more mind games going to be played as well with the push to pass hybrid system. Always makes racing a little bit more exciting, having that sort of on-track strategy. It's not just in the pit lane, but the drivers themselves have to think a bit. You don't want to use it too much here, or can you maybe use it out of this corner and get a little bit closer in towards, say, the final chicane, and have a niggle at the driver in front, and it all adds into maybe giving the drivers a little bit of an advantage, or if you use it wrong, a bit of a disadvantage. But again, it all comes down to the drivers themselves, and you really need to be on top of your game in every aspect tonight to win today.
Indeed, top 5 rounded out by Carl Felvis, who actually is running with VRRC, currently rounds out the top 5, and it's not much between them, to be completely honest with you. I think just over half, just 4.1 tenths of a second. And there is Dave Marshall currently leading the way in time qualifying. We've got just over 12 minutes of the session to go. So let's see if we can ride on board with one of the drivers. I think probably, let's see if someone who's about to come through Redgate or across the start-finish line. Be good to get an on board. So Axel Kerr with Grid Finder, making his way through Redgate, now into Hollywood, and then the sudden descent through the Craner curves, taken at full commitment. You're going to be in pretty much the best part of about 120 to 130 miles an hour in 5th gear. Hard on the brakes, turn it into the old hairpin, and then the uphill climb begins through Starkeys and through into Schruntz curve, before you then have a very heavy braking zone for the right-hander coming up shortly, which will be McLean's. And then the deceptive double right-hander, which is up another incline, that's Coppice. So Axel Kerr currently sitting in P8 on a 1 minute 9.766 through the second part of Coppice, and now heading down towards Starkey Straight. There's going to be a little bit of a bump here, which is characteristic of the circuit, and then hard on the brakes into Roberts, as it looks like there's been a lot of locking up going through, or somebody's had a little bit of an off-track excursion going through that part of the circuit. And Axel Kerr heading towards the line here, currently P8, does not improve on that particular lap time. 1 minute 10.01 on that last lap. Nick Sutton currently sitting in 6th place on a 1 minute 9.599. Making his way into the right-hander at the old hairpin. Also track limits, very much a contention within touring cars in normal circles here, Dylan. But here, you know, as long as you're within 2 wheels of the white lines, unless you decide to circumnavigate that and go all 4 wheels, the game automatically penalises you. So the drivers for a 60-minute race are going to have their eyeballs on stalks, aren't they?
Yeah, especially around certain parts of Donington, like as we've just seen Mike Sutton come through on the exit of McLean's. It's a very, in touring cars, very battly sort of corner, a lot of side-by-side action. Sometimes you can see drivers going 3 wide there, and it's very easy to run so far off the track and not even realise it with how much curb and astro runoff there is. It can be quite deceiving, and I think that corner particularly, as well as the final chicane here, is going to catch a lot of drivers off guard.
Indeed. We have had some info sent in by a couple of the teams, and I like this little statement from Positive Perception Racing. Everyone is famous in positive perception. I bet Mark Radbetter wrote that. PVT Dancer 69 with Odyssey Racing League, based in the USA, and they pretty much run on PC leagues pretty much every single day of the week. They offer a family like close-knit community, which is really good to hear that there's a lot of people that are trying to have more of a family feel in terms of the sim racing community, and that's one of the beauties of the Grid Finder platform, where there are over 1,000 leagues that you can go onto grid-finder.com to find out further information about where you can sign up, what league, what platform, whatever you can do. So PVT Dancer 69 currently sitting in 10th position, just over 2 seconds off the pace, but it is still very, very close between the top 4. Mick Sutton is in pit lane. Tom Bunton from Grid Finder, the man behind Grid Finder, as PVT Dancer 69 locks up and goes straight into the kitty litter. But yeah, I think we're just going to really see, I think, a pretty good strategic race. As I said earlier on, Dylan, we're not going to have these 3 races where you're going to have mixed up grids, so you're going to have qualifying decides the first race grid, and then the next race grid is dependent on race 1, and then race 2, it's race 3, it's whatever's on race 2, what the results were, and you have the top 12 sort of like inverted, so to speak. So it's nice to see a bit of more of an endurance style format, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got that long distance sort of strategic with the pit stops, and you sort of a push to pass as well with the on-track thing. But as well, you have that elbows out nature of touring car racing mixed with that endurance strategy with the pit stop, and it's a good dynamic, which I'm really excited to see how it works out. There's one race, everything on the line, and it just adds that little bit of spice which we always get with touring car racing, as it's already elbows out, even with 3 races. Think this, with there's only 1 race, with it's all on the line, it's going to be even more exciting with more overtakes, but people may, because of the longer race, may be a bit smarter when it comes to overtakes, be a bit more strategic with setting them up, trying to chain a few corners, maybe juke around the track, trying to put their opponent offline, and be a bit more smart with the overtakes instead of sort of a 20-minute race where every pass matters. So it could be a mix of that sort of elbows out touring car racing, but with the strategy and patience of endurance racing that we see in the likes of GT racing.
I think also the tyre compounds are really going to factor in as well, because they've got the choice of 3 different ones. There will be pit stops initiated, I would imagine, by the drivers. There will be mandatory pit stops. So in that respect, the drivers are going to have to really work at that, aren't they? They'll see, well, hang on, do I go medium for the first part of it? Do I go hard for the longer sort of midpoint of the race? And do I decide maybe I want to stick a set of softs on, get a few fast laps under my belt, so sort of do a simulated quali run, but try and pass a few people at the same time?
Yeah, it's even more interesting when you throw the tyres into the mix as well. So it's a bit of strategy, even more with, do you maybe go for a 2-stop, a bit more aggressive sort of thing, sort of have like an F1 engineer mindset with the strategy, because you could just go for a standard 1-stop, try and push away, but maybe go a bit more aggressive with a 2-stop, take the softer compounds, and just try and have that extra bit of pace. And it's a very different format that Grid Finder have put together, and I'm really looking forward to the dynamic of it. It also leaves a lot on the table of what to expect, so it's quite unknown, this sort of style of racing when it comes to touring cars, so it's very hard to predict how it's going to turn out and what the drivers are really thinking when it comes to strategy.
Well, in the battle for pole position, Miles Dixon has gone to within a quarter of a tenth of Dave Marshall. So the battle is pretty much game on for pole position. Dave Marshall trying to better, I would think, his lap time of 1 minute 8.179 as he now hurtles his way through into Red Gate. And looking at the top 10, it's not that much between them. I mean, it's about 1.7, close to 1.7 seconds, or 1.724 there, as you can see indicated on the screens on the timing tower. But still, drivers trying to push the limit. A lot of rubber going down and a lot of locking up as well. I mean, going into Red Gate, sometimes the drivers will try and push, but then you'll always have that little bit where they just press those brake pedals a little bit too feverishly, let's say, to try and get the car stopped. And there's always going to be a little bit of kick up of smoke and a bit more of the 11s is laid on the track there, Dylan.
Yeah, also, you don't want to be locking up in the race with the tyres and the different tyre compounds that we have. You really don't want to burn up into them because it can cut your tyres short a bit. And doing stuff like that as well, cutting so much on the inside curb or just running a bit wide onto the gravel, you can also risk yourself getting punctures. So with this sort of strategy as well, with the lockups, you need to be very careful, especially into the race, because if you keep being a bit too aggressive, lock up, it's going to be causing problems further down the line.
Indeed it is, and we are coming to the final throes of qualifying here at the Gridfinder Invitational. A big thank you for you all for tuning in. Just over 4 minutes to go on the clock. Axel Kerr currently sitting in 7th place. I'll actually make that 8th now, as Tom O'Farrell has gone P7. That was with a 1 minute 9.269, and it seems like Nick Karagiannis from Positive Perception has just had a little bit of an incident with Mick Sutton from ATE Motorsport. Even qualifying, the drivers are trying to find the limit of these Cupra Leon competition cars around these this very fast and flowing, just under 2 mile circuit. Dustin Brown looking to hopefully improve from 14th position, just under 2.5 seconds off the pace of Dave Marshall. But Miles Dixon, just seen that Dave Marshall has just gone purple in sector number 1 and not bettered it on that particular occasion, as Dustin Brown, and he's Dave Marshall, Dylan, has just improved by 1/1000th. They've just put in a 1 minute 7.178 and is now 26 thousandths ahead of Miles Dixon. I'm really looking forward to seeing if Miles Dixon can really up the ante and try and close in on Dave Marshall with just under 3 minutes to go in quali.
Those sort of improvements are Trackmania-like, sort of absolute milliseconds into it, but every sort of, you break even an inch later sort of thing, or maybe get that throttle on a bit earlier, every little helps. And Dave Marshall there, even though it's a millisecond, that millisecond could be the difference between pole and starting second. So every little helps, even if it's milliseconds, tiny amounts, it's still helping you in the long run, still improving. Miles Dixon, he found some chunk of time as the session's gone on, so I think in the closing laps that these drivers get, we are going to see that gap go down. It may not go all the way down and he might not take pole, but improvements of track evolution is going to happen as well. I think we're setting up for a bit of a Dave Marshall's just gone and improved more, I believe. Yeah, fastest lap, a 108.021. So like I was saying, track evolution, these drivers are pushing it to the limits as Axelson's runs a bit wide, hits the barrier on the exit of the final chicane. So these drivers are going to be on the limits. Track evolution, these final few laps are going to be crucial, and I think the order is going to be changing massively. We should see most of the cars coming out onto track now as well, as you can see a lot of drivers in the pit lane. I think we're going to see everyone coming out now for their final laps, just giving it one last go to see how far they can get up the order.
Yep, Mick Sutton about to cross the line, currently P9, and on that particular occasion it was a 1 minute 10.703. So the 9th place car of Mick Sutton from ATE Motorsport unable to improve on that particular occasion, but with just over 1 minute and 20 left on the timer. XD Gamer 38 ends up going off track. So they are all pushing. That's from semi-racing. Andy Carroll has got one right up his exhaust pipes going through into Red Gate. That's not what you want in terms of qualification. Andy Carroll currently sitting in 6th position. and is just over 1.2 seconds behind Dave Marshall, who has extended that gap to 0.183 between himself and Miles Dixon as we're coming into the last 45 seconds in qualifying. Mark Ranbury is the only driver, I think, still sitting in the pit lane. Andy Carroll, hopefully, making his way up the hill, through into McLean's and into Coppice. Might be able to make something of it, as long as he keeps it on the black stuff. Rotates the car in. Through Coppice, now onto Starkey Straight, for the run down to Roberts. That could be Axel Kerr, I think, just up ahead, or Tom Bunton, that might be in one of the Grid Finder cars. Bumps over the curbs going into Roberts. Andy Carroll makes his way out of the final part of Roberts, all four wheels onto the grass. Rally crossing it a little bit and across the line. That particular time, oh, it was close. It was a 1:09.181. Dustin Brown needs to improve from 14th position to get a little bit further up the order, as it looks like we have now hit the timer, concluding at 0 here in qualifying. So these drivers will be out for their final last hurrahs. Lewis Edwards, half a second off of Dave Marshall, looks to have secured P3. Dustin Brown bumping over the curbs through the exit of Roberts and heads across the line. Will there be improvement from 14th? And that was a 1:11.241, so 6/10 slower. Unfortunately, Dustin Brown unable to improve. Miles Dixon in the pit lane. Looks like a lot of the drivers have done so. And Jonathan Seville, from Positive Perception, decides to pull over to the right-hand side of the road. Andy Carroll still hoping to try and improve as more drivers come across the line. And Riandy Wijaja, I don't think has improved. Looks to still be in 12th place. Andy Carroll bumping over the curbs, a little bit neater that time coming out of Roberts, and decides to. So that concludes qualifying, and Dave Marshall is your pole sitter for the Grid Finder Invitational Touring Car Special here at Donington Park National. So that was a pretty good qualifying session. I think it was getting a bit closer at the end, but it was just the way that Dave Marshall just went, yeah, you might be 26 thousandths behind me, Miles Dixon, but here we go. I'm going to show you something, and it was something special, wasn't it, Dylan?
Dave Marshall miles ahead of everyone else. Miles Dixon a bit closer behind in second, but Dave Marshall and Miles Dixon miles ahead. Between first and third, there was half a second gap in qualifying, so I really think the race is just going to be between those two. I can't really see, if you're half a second behind in qualifying, how the likes of Lewis Edwards and Jonathan Seville can really catch the likes of Miles Dixon and Dave Marshall. Maybe a good start could spice things up a bit, but unless they can get ahead of in the first two corners and maybe throw a spanner in the works, I really think the win will come from Marshall or Dixon.
Okay, well, touring cars are always unpredictable, especially here at Donington Park National. Good to see people showing their support for drivers. Carl Felvis is supporting VRRC, of course, running with the team. And a lot of love for the Virtual Reality Racing Club, and a big thank you for them for their assistance in the modification for the Cupra Leon. Cupra is the performance arm of SEAT. And really good to see from VRRC saying great job from our guys. Well done everyone else. Looking forward to one hell of a race here tonight at Donington Park National. It's a circuit I've also been to before over the years, commentated on it from a virtual perspective and also in real life. I think it was a couple of years ago, and it was the internet. It was the Grand Prix loop where you actually had the Melbourne hairpin. But this is properly suited for touring car racing here tonight. And I think really having this. I know I'm going to probably wax lyrical about this multiple times, Dylan, so please tell me if I keep on repeating myself. But the Cupra Leon in its own right is a very competitive vehicle. We've got ultra-competitive drivers. Redgate always brings a surprise on lap 1, turn 1, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was at British GT last year where they had the massive pile-up at turn 1 at Redgate. It is a tricky corner, regardless whether you're doing a hot lap or racing, but especially lap 1, turn 1, it is chaos. Last time I commentated a race around Donington Park, it was touring cars, and all 3 races, someone had a bit of an incident at Redgate. So drivers, they're going to want to move up the order as much as they can. If they find the gap, they're going to go for it. And for the nature of Redgate, someone is going to meet the barrier.
Yeah. And with this hour race, it is about not just getting through turn 1 on lap 1, it's also about that mechanical sympathy. And for those wondering, there is 50% damage model on these cars, so there may be a little bit of dramas along the way. However, we are just a couple of moments away from getting things going. Everyone's going to be starting to ready up, so your grid is going to be as follows. Dave Marshall will start from pole position. Miles Dixon will be alongside on the front row. Then it's Lewis Edwards and Jonathan Seville. Kyle Felvis and Andy Carroll, row 3. Tom O'Farrell and Axel Kerr, row 4. Mick Sutton and Mark Ranbury will complete the top 10. Tom Bunton, who has actually raced at this circuit in real life, Gridfinder actually has their own motorsport team currently running in the Enduro KA series. He starts 11th, and we'll have Riandi Wijaja alongside. And we're actually going to go to the grid right now. So we are. So we've got PVT Dancer 69, Dustin Brown, Nick Karagiannis on 15th, Gigi Isan on 16th, Matej Fetik, then we got Devil, XD Gamer 38, Giorgio, and that's the grid for today. So 20 cars, 20 Cupra Leon competitions here at Donington Park. And really good to see that Eleanor Smith saying, people don't call Tim the Donington Don Bunton for nothing. And she said that if he doesn't win, I'll eat my hat. He's a natural born winner. And VRRC have already thrown in the banter into the ring. Get your hat out and some ketchup. Well, there you go. That's what these invitations are about. It's competitive. There is prize money up for grabs. £50 for the winning driver, £50 for the winning team at the end of 60 minutes. Dylan, I'm not going to make a prediction about this race because I don't know how it's going to pan out. I mean, we've got so many different factors coming into this. It's anyone's guess who's going to take it. But I think you very well put that it could be a real good battle between Dave Marshall and Miles Dixon, who line up on the front row.
Yeah, I'm looking at their pace in qualifying. That's where I really see it's going to come from. Also, to note, looking at the tyre compounds, most people are on the hards, a few people on the mediums, including Axel Kerr, but only one person, Matej Fetik, is on the soft, starting down in 17th, so that's someone to watch out for. They're going to have that extra grip off the line. Like you said, going into Redgate, that's going to cause some problems maybe. If he gets a good start, he's going to catch a lot of people off guard that are up the road and not expecting him to come through. But Marshall and Dixon both being on the same compounds, probably going to be evenly matched going in towards turn 1, which also sets up for a good battle, like I believe is going to happen.
Yeah, top 7 drivers on the grid, starting on the hard compound tyres. And it's Axel Kerr with Gridfinder that is going to be the highest placed car on the medium compound tyres. So it's a bit of a 50-50, mainly switching towards the hard tyres. So getting those ones out the way before they really start getting to those tyres that really allow a bit of purchase, a bit of grip around this just shy of 2 mile circuit. And with regards to the, you can see on the picture-in-picture, XD Gamer 38 we've actually got on board from the bonnet cam on the right-hand side of your screens, as we are just over 40 seconds away from getting things going here at the Gridfinder Invitational, Donington Park, National Circuit, Touring Car Bonanza. And we thank you all for joining us once again. You know what, Dylan? I've got goosebumps on my forearms. The hairs are standing on the back of my neck. I can't wait.
Too warm for me to be getting goosebumps here, but yeah, I am. Doesn't stop me from being excited. I am really looking forward to this. I love Donington. I love touring car racing. We are in for an absolute brilliant race. It's so good I can't actually get my words out properly.
Right, red lights on the starting gantry. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get things underway, and the Gridfinder Invitational Touring Car Special is go. The run down to Redgate, turn 1 here at Donington Park National. It's a bit of switching to and from. Drivers trying to look towards the outside, going through into the opening corner. Miles Dixon currently sitting in second position, but gets a little bit of a tap from behind, as Dave Marshall has already bolted as they go down the Craners for the very first time, nearly 3 abreast at one point. And look at the gaggle from 5th backwards. They're all going to start braking hard into the old hairpin, lock up of brakes, smoking of tyres, and Mick Sutton already off the road. And there has been a massive incident right at the back of the old hairpin. and I counted at least 4 to 5 cars involved in that particular incident. Mark Raddenbury finds himself at the tail end of the field after just the opening few corners of this race.
Well, we suspected it would happen at Redgate, not quite down at the old hairpin, but the nature of Donington is going to happen. So where's touring car racing? It's the brutal nature of motorsport in general, these sort of crashes, but that's not quite what I had in mind when we thought there'd be a little incident. I think there was a bit more than 5 cars that I saw kicking off smoke or being sideways. I think Tom Bunton was involved in that. Mark Raddenbury, XD Gamer 38 to be involved some way up. Dave Marshall already seems to have pulled a fair gap up in front, but what we said, Matic Fetic on the soft compound hasn't really made any inroads in climbing any position, so maybe the soft tyres not made as good of a start as he would have been, as there's a little tap Andy Carroll, he's giving Axel Kerr a little love tap on the exit of Old Hairpin. We don't want 2 instances in 2 laps round. They're round the outside. Andy Carroll tries to find his way. Door is slammed shut at the top of McLean's.
Yeah, that was Tom O'Farrell literally making it 3 abreast and threading the eye of the needle through McLean. So Andy Carroll down into 8th position as they exit their way through Coppice. Dave Marshall already has that gap is nearly 4 seconds. And we're nearly at the end of the second lap of racing as Andy Carroll hard on the brakes. Tom O'Farrell locks up big time in front, going through Roberts, and O'Farrell goes rally crossing. I think that's something Matthias Ekstrom would have been proud of. However, that's not going to help Tom O'Farrell as Andy Carroll gets back into 7th position. As Rajaja has a massive moment going through Roberts. The car was completely sideways. It's got the likes of Dustin Brown, Devil, Matish Fetic, Mark Raddenbury, XD Gamer, and Giorgio rounding out the 20-strong grid. And more locking up there from Dustin Brown. Rajaja sends it around the outside, going through into Redgate, goes all 4 wheels off the circuit. Manages to rejoin as they head their way down through Hollywood and into the Craner curves. And this is classic touring car action. It was side by side for a brief moment, but Rajaja manages to get through and stay ahead. Locks up, going into the old hairpin, and keeps it planted on the black stuff.
Ooh, someone's going off in the background there at Old Hairpin as well. We saw someone going off at Redgate Hollywood. Everyone is taking trips to the grass and the gravel. Why are people struggling so much to keep it on the track right now? Even on their own, we're seeing a lot of people run wide. I mean, it's an hour race. You'd think people would be a bit more cautious because the race isn't won on the first lap. Certainly couldn't be lost. I know it's the second lap, but nonetheless, there's still 60 minutes on the clock. So why is there such aggression, really, from the drivers that is causing them to go so wide? And there's Andy Carroll going to try and nick 2 places as it goes down towards Craner Curves. A little battle forming up ahead. That's with Tom Farrell and Axel Kerr. Ooh, it's a bit scrappy everywhere, it seems to be. Can they keep it? Can't find any sort of movement in towards Old Hairpin. He goes a bit wide, and that's going to open up the door for Tom O'Farrell, I believe, as he goes up through Starkeys and Schwartz, up towards McLean's, round the outside. Andy Carroll has been a bit mugged off there by Tom O'Farrell. Brilliant move by Tom.
Yeah, and the 2 in front, Jonathan Seville and Axel Kerr battling away. Jonathan Seville with Positive Perception Racing. They're battling over P5 at the moment. Just over half a second separates them at that particular moment in time when Tom O'Farrell did that fantastic outside overtake on Andy Carroll, who's running the slipstream and is looking for the inside line going into the chicane at Roberts, and actually manages to get through. O'Farrell locks up. Carroll bumps over the curbs into and out of Roberts and retakes 7th position. Nice work there by Andy Carroll. So Dave Marshall leading the way by just under 3.5 seconds. Just keeping an eye on the lap times. Dave Marshall just went purple in the first sector. Miles Dixon set a personal best in sector 1. They've both had a slightly slower second and third respective sectors. As now the lead expands further still. Dave Marshall in these early doors with us coming up to close to nearly over 5 minutes of this 60-minute race here at Donington Park National. Everything's in full swing at the moment, but coming back to what you were saying earlier, Dylan, you said about the drivers, taking a lot of risks. Well, that's touring cars, isn't it?
Yes and no. I mean, you see the touring car sort of racing, but I mean more individually when they're just on their own. are really pushing it already. It's almost like every lap's a qualifying lap for them. And maybe the drivers haven't got used to the car, maybe it's something they're not practiced with, who knows. But seeing a lot of drivers running wide, I mean, they are all on the limits. As we see Andy Carroll kind of showing what I mean. Everyone running a bit wide, even on corners where you don't think so. Maybe they're just outbraking themselves, but maybe they're not quite used to the Cupra. Maybe certain drivers, some people are maybe just here for a bit of fun and haven't had the most practice in. But it's very interesting to see a lot of drivers so early on making these very innocent mistakes which normally wouldn't happen, which has left me with quite a few questions to maybe why. Because normally with touring car, it's very side-by-side instances, like we saw at lap 1 down at the old hairpin. Those are the sort of instances I'm thinking of, not just sort of, not even lockups, just completely outbraking yourself and running off. It's something that I'm very surprised at seeing.
I think one of the interesting things, we talked about the tyre compounds. The top 5 at the moment, it looks like there's been an incident between Miles Dixon and Lewis Edwards, and that's for second on the road. So that means that Dixon has lost a heck of a lot of ground to Dave Marshall in the process. Andy Carroll, side by side with Axel Kerr, manages to get through for 6th position. Kerr gives him an assist from the side, and Carroll's turned around, and it's pinball wizardry through Roberts as Tom O'Farrell gives the back end of Axel Kerr a bit of a tap, and that has given the opportunity for Mick Sutton to get through into 7th position. Andy Carroll now finds himself at the bottom of the top at the bottom of the top 10. He could be 11th in a minute as we ride on board with Lewis Edwards. This is down into the Craner curves and into Old Hairpin. He's trying to squeeze up the inside of Miles Dixon, but Dixon stays resolute and keeps Edwards behind.
What really happened there at the final chicane as Lewis Edwards trying to go round the outsole? Have they already caught up to traffic as well, actually? We're what, only about 5 minutes in? Is there already lapped cars out on track? I'm sure I've...
Yeah, I think, Isan in 20th position. I mean, Axel Kerr at the moment is actually the highest place of the medium compound tyre shod Cupras, at the moment in 6th place. So it's not been a bad run for Axel Kerr so far, as Isan is... Oh, that's been parked. So that's one of the cars, unfortunately, out by the wayside. Someone's just coming out of pit lane, possibly to have served a penalty. That's Fetic, who's just switched from softs to medium compound tyres and now sits in 19th position. Lewis Edwards now finds himself behind Carl Felvers. So there has been a change for 3rd place in the meantime, when Edwards was battling away with Dixon for that 2nd position, but Felvers trying to force the issue going up into Schwantz curve. Now the move up into McLean's. Felvers looking to the outside. Dixon parks it on the racing line, and Edwards. And there is Jonathan Seville. So it's 4 Cupra Leon competitions all in a row going into Coppice. Smoke pouring from the car at the front, which is Dixon. Felvers right up the back bumper. PVD Dancer 69 trying to go up the inside of Andy Carroll, who manages to bring it on the black stuff and nearly has a little bit of door rubbing with the 10th placed Cupra. But 4 cars all in a row. Lewis Edwards exercising good suspension travel there through Roberts, I must say. So seems like the ride on these cars are very compliant, but at the moment it's now Kyle Felvers who's actually ahead of Miles Dixon in the battle for 2nd position.
Yeah, Lewis Edwards trying to find his way through as well. We've seen on the past couple laps we've been with this little battle, he's not really been able to find a gap where he can make the move. We saw him look at a bit of a niggle up towards McLean's, nothing budging there. So maybe it's time he just sits and waits. He knows he's got the time. Maybe try and see if Felvis and Dixon can maybe have a bit of a coming together, or see where they can do. So if they start scrapping, then Edwards can maybe find the gap and just try and get 2 in 1. Coppice is a brilliant turn for that. If they go side by side, to maybe push each other a little while. I think we saw that in British touring cars this year, where that happened quite a few times, where drivers would have a bit of a scrap up towards here, the gap would open up, and then the driver 2 cars behind would then just slide through and get both of them. So maybe Edwards, though, he's tucked into the back of Dixon here. Can he get him running towards the Robert chicane? He peers to the right hand side, not quite close enough, as Dixon just sort of slams the door shut a bit there. Now if these 2 start going off as Edwards runs a bit wide there, maybe Felvis can start running off into the distance and trying to secure that 2nd place, because right now Dave Marshall is flying. he's miles gone. He is absolutely always. As I just seen Felvis go off then? No. Someone just went off at turn 1, I'm sure. This puff of smoke is a lot of lockups causing a lot of problems. Edwards, though, tucked into the back of Dixon. Is he going to be able to maybe send one up the inside at Old Hairpin? No, he can't. Nothing budging there. Oh, very close. Oh, tries to find the gap. It's not there. Edwards, very lucky not to have spanned Dixon out there.
Yeah, oh, there's another touch between the pair as well as they go through McLean's a little bit further back. I think it was Mick Sutton that went all 4 wheels off the circuit through Redgate. And this is going to probably allow the likes, well, Axel Kerr is now ahead of Mick Sutton. So Axel Kerr in 6th place. Tom O'Farrell, PVT Dancer 69 and Andy Carroll round out the top 10. Tom Bunton did have a little bit of a coming together a bit earlier on, maybe a lap ago. And there is Tom Bunton currently sitting in 13th position. Right over the back bumper of Wijaja going through into McLean's, and he's got the inside run for Coppis. Can he make it stick? No, he can't through the first part, but now he's hopefully going to get that slipstream. Now, one of the other things that we haven't really talked about in this first 12 minutes of this 60-minute race, I can't believe how fast time has flown by. We saw in real-life British touring cars that they were using the hybrid push-to-pass or assist going through Schwanz Curve and into Starkeys. Or Starkeys and into Schwanz Curve coming from the old hairpin, and you could hazard a guess that they're probably using it as much as they dare without really sort of overstepping the line. That's why you're seeing, well, now Dixon currently in, what is that? That's going to be 4th place. Tom Bunton up the inside of Wijaja. Now this is going to be a classic one if they keep it side by side going through the Craners, and they are, and there's going to be a touch. Oh, Wijaja goes off the track and might collect the gravel and the barriers very shortly. It was the slightest glance, and Wijaja saved it on the approach into the old hairpin. Well held there, I must say, but Miles Dixon now behind Jonathan Seville from Positive Perception Racing, who rounds out the top 3.
This battle for 3rd is really starting to heat up there. We've got Seville, Dixon and Edwards as they run in towards Redgate. Edwards has now fallen to the back of this pack, and they're sort of yo-yoing between each other here, where every time we pan out it's a different colour car. All brilliant liveries on these cars, I must say, so every time we pan to them there's a different, we're all in a different order, as right now Seville leads them down towards the old hairpin with that is Dixon trying to peer a move in. Not quite close enough, running very wide. Now that might open the door to Edwards. Like I said, the push-to-pass system up towards McLean's, trying to gain that gap down. Bit of a mistake as we saw from Dixon. He allows Edwards to close up there. You can see right on, gaining a lot closer up towards Coppis now we go. And this is just allowing Seville to pull ahead a bit as everyone just locking up constantly, kicking up smoke all the way through here. And I think Edwards might fancy himself a move up towards Roberts.
Isan has disconnected from the server. He's actually had a problem with it. It's the 5th time the game has actually crashed for the driver, so Isan out. Fetic also out and has disconnected from the server, so we now have out of 20 cars that started this race just over 14 minutes ago. We are down to 18 competitors as Kyle Felvis now finds himself around about from, well, he's about to, oh, now that was a run wide. That was from Edwards. That was coming through Redgate and going into Hollywood.
Just giving Dixon some breathing space there, because you just had to feel Edwards was closing up onto the back of Dixon there, maybe thinking of a move, but again, these little mistakes are just creating breathing space for the drivers. That this traffic as well is going to start causing problems later down the line. Oh, that's not good. How's that collected someone? Oh, they are all very lucky to come out of that unscathed.
That was definitely squeaky bum time right about there, and whoever was behind the wheel of that Cupra Leon definitely needs a new change of virtual underwear right there and then, and that is not exactly the place where you want to go spinning a car around, especially if it's a tin top. But Jonathan Seville carries on leading this battle for 3rd place. We now go to Nick Karagiannis from Positive Perception Racing, currently sitting in 11th place, and he's being chased down by Tom Bunton, who is just over 0.4 of a second. They're going to go through into Coppis now. Out of P11 very much heating up, and Bunton taking a little bit of a wide line going through Coppis. Miles Dixon in the meantime closing in through the Craner curves on Jonathan Seville. 4P3, less than 0.2 separate the pair as they go through into the braking zone, into the old hairpin. Lewis Edwards is keeping them very, very honest. And Edwards, at the moment here, Dylan, has got the ringside seat.
Yeah, you can just sit back, watch all of this unfold from behind. But again, all it takes is one little mistake. We've seen a few of them as Dixon misses the apex there. It's going to open up the door as Edwards tries to find, as I was saying, one little mistake further ahead. It's going to allow Edwards to just get in. Bit of contact there, wheel-to-wheel budging. And I thought for a second there Miles Dixon was about to go and take a spin.
Well, Jonathan Seville, if he wants to start pushing, has got a target in front. Just about a couple of seconds up the road is Carl Felvis in the second placed vehicle. Dave Marshall has literally, I think he's entered another county at this particular moment in time, because we've seen neither hide nor hair of Dave Marshall, who put in that impressive 1 minute 8.0 second lap time to secure pole position for tonight's Gridfinder Invitational, as that's a run wide coming out of Redgate and going to Hollywood for Lewis Edwards. It's going to lose the fifth place Cupra Leon a little bit of time. You can see that gap sort of expanding, but then onto the brakes, Edwards seems to get a little bit more of that gap brought down, and to have both two targets in the crosshairs just ahead of him, Dylan, in the form of Dixon and Seville, he's got something to aim for, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, these targets are always going to allow you to just have that bit of motivation, something to push for as well, a target. But you can see he is pushing, he's making these mistakes, but he really needs to limit out. So we can tell he's on the limit, he's hunting them down, but at a certain point, maybe you need to start and think, you've got to make a pit stop. Where do you think of strategy? And maybe stop with the aggression and maybe risking putting yourself in a bit of damage, a bit of bother, and maybe out of the battle for the podium entirely, and start thinking about, well, if I'm struggling to get past one track, can I maybe use the pit window and tyre strategy to maybe go and get them into pits?
Yeah, Giorgio looking to close on in. That's on XD Gamer 38 just up ahead, and Giorgio, that was very, very close indeed. The back end went fishtailing, and Giorgio caught it and nearly ended up in the side of XD Gamer 38 right there and then, but luckily enough, once bitten, twice shy. So they managed to escape rather unscathed there. Lewis Edwards, though, however, is right on, and he's got past. Lewis Edwards has got past Miles Dixon, both locking up under brakes, going in through, that would have been McLean's right there. So Lewis Edwards now up into fourth place and can start hunting down Jonathan Seville. So having that little bit of motivation does really help a driver to just get on with business, and there just up ahead is Carl Felvis in second position, a country mile away from our runaway leader at the moment, with coming up to the first third of the race completed, just over 41 minutes and 25 seconds on the timer remaining. Dave Marshall well ahead by about the best part of nearly 12 seconds. Make that 12.7 as Edwards. Oh, Seville went on the defensive and they clatter into each other. And that allows Dixon to sort of door rub his way up the inside of Edwards, and then also going through Hollywood, he manages to get back up into P3, and there's a little bit of a touch between Edwards and Seville. Seville's off the track, manages to hold it all together and keep it pinned for the braking zone for the old hairpin. Well held.
There's a lot of heart and mouth moments that we're seeing here as Edwards now tries to get himself back past Miles Dixon as they go up towards McLean's. Very wide for Dixon, and Edwards is going to say thank you very much and retake that. Dixon was still looking hungry, still trying to find a way through. He's not quite close enough in towards Coppice. A lock-up running wide there for Edwards. Can Dixon try and find his way up the inside? No, he's not close enough. And also, this is all going on. They're still pulling a bit of a gap to Seville as well. So maybe Seville needs to hope these two start going a bit side by side, and then maybe he can do what Miles Dixon did last time. And when these two come together, then Jonathan Seville can maybe take his sort of present that's opened up as the door opens up, and he can maybe get two of them in one. As real touring car racing we're getting here, a lot of side-by-side action as a couple cars come together. The third car in the train just takes his picking, says thank you very much, and moves ahead, and then it sort of repeats itself, because we've had that a few times with this little scrap so far, and it doesn't seem like it's going to stop. As XD Gamer,
that was definitely a little bit more than an assist, and I think the stewards are very, very busy tonight as we're past the first third of this 60-minute race here, the Gridfinder Invitational. So post-race, every incident will be looked at. So from our perspective, the results that myself and Dylan will be calling today, they will be provisional. Oh,
What?
and I think we might have just had a little bit of server drama just there, as I think we were close. We were just over, I think, probably the best part of over 20 minutes into the race. So apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen. Some great racing up until that point, with Dave Marshall having a considerable country mile of an advantage to the tune of well over 12.5 seconds. Oh, plane spotting.
Oh, the airport is next door, so I mean,
Exactly.
they fly over you pretty low. It is impressive when you actually sat on the exit of turn 1 and 2 and a plane takes off. You don't realise how low they are, but the cars are so loud you don't actually notice the planes. It's remarkable.
What was it? There's a lovely little venue actually, literally just around the corner from Donington Park, and I remember one particular weekend, two of my good friends, who unfortunately are now divorced. Long story short, they both got married. We were right by Donington Park, and what's decided to thunder into life? It was the race start for British GT. You couldn't have picked a more motorsport moment like that at a wedding with people that are all motorsport mad gathering in one particular place, and then we see all these people gathered together, and then we just hear the rumble of GT3s and GT4s going into battle for probably the best part of a 2-hour exchange around this circuit. But yeah, apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen. These things do happen in the world of sim racing, and we were enjoying that significantly. So hopefully we might be able to get things back on track very, very shortly. And the oh dearie me, Ethan Craig's just gone, someone needs to put 50p in the meter. An appropriate comment round about now.
It's my brother.
Oh well,
I'll go give him a slap afterwards if need be.
I think you need to give him more than that.
He might be to give him the 50p.
Yeah, give him the 50p and say, "Oh, wait, find the meter. Come on, you said the comment, you do the deed."
Going to the race, is it safe to say Dave Marshall is running away with this one?
By a country mile, an absolute country mile. He was leading it by the best part of nearly 13 seconds. So
said he was in another county. Now, isn't part of Donington actually separated into two counties? Because I'm sure through Starks and McLean's that's in Derbyshire and the rest is in Leicestershire.
Exactly.
So you wasn't really wrong when you said that he's in another county.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Technically he was.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that if you scarper away quick enough, yeah, you can find yourself in Derbyshire, and everyone else will think, "Where's he gone?" Yeah, this is the postcode, boys. Punch that into your ways on your smartphones. You know?
By the way, some of these people have been crashing. If someone goes off into cockpits, they can find themselves in Nottinghamshire pretty surely as well.
That depends if they've got the wind beneath their wings, you know.
Yeah, but may as well get some motivation from it.
True.
This is what people turn up for. They don't care about racing, they just care about us.
Well, there we go.
We're the sort of...
well, your brother's responded. Your brother's responded, Dylan. He's put the laugh out loud emojis in the chat.
we shut him up very quickly there, didn't we? Oh no, you did. All right.
Wow. Whoa.
Oi! That grandstand though on the left there that's not there in real life anymore, is it?
No.
Oh, we've got this break. I wanted to point it out. When I've been to Donington, that's never been there.
No, it's just been.
It's not there at World Superbikes this weekend, so it's...
Oh no, yeah, World Superbikes was there this week. Yeah, this weekend. Crikey.
I was gutted not to be there. I would have loved it.
No, I was down in Hertfordshire for some karting commentary earlier on today, which was quite interesting at 30-degree heat with just a fan to keep me company. And try and help.
Looking outside tomorrow in 40-degree heat, so I'll beat you on that one.
It felt like 50 degrees in that room.
You've got karting races that you can enjoy to take your mind off things.
Well, there you go. And VR have just piped up. We'll take a 1, 2, 3 then. it was close to looking that way, guys.
definitely running ahead there. That battle for third, though, was getting exciting. Now,
that was like a casserole of touring car action. You know, door rubbing, paint swapping, people, you know, giving little bit of assists and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's what touring car racing is all about. And you know what? For this particular invitational, and yeah, again, we can only apologise about the delay. Up until that point, that was definitely for the first nearly half an hour of the 60-minute race, absolutely action-packed. And you were sort of like saying, yeah, I do like it, but I don't. And it was, you know, I think there is a bit of a discussion happening at the moment. I think the drivers are discussing about possibly the race getting restarted. I don't know whether it's going to be a full length, but it will be a 30-minute race, so it will be half the amount of time. We'll still have. So we're probably going to have another qualifying session, which is the way things look. So please bear with us. We are underway with just trying to getting that all sorted for you people. But thank you very much already for tuning in here on Grid Finder for the Invitational tonight. Good to have good old touring cars in the mix, apart from single seaters, where myself and Dylan, I think, what was it, 3 weeks ago, I was in.
Less than that.
Is it? Felt like it. Oh no, it's 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was in the break between British Grand Prix and Canadian. Yeah. Not sure.
It was actually.
It was a good time. That's all we know.
From what we can remember, I've slept a lot since then, and so has Dylan.
I've been working as well, so I've done a bit more than sleeping. I've been completely dying in the sun, to put it simply.
Have you been putting on your Factor 50?
Oh no, if they give me a hose pipe, I'm cleaning stuff, it rubs off straight away, there's no point.
Oh dear.
Off work, but you know what, it's getting paid, so can't complain, can we?
Can't complain at all there.
Well, the thing we can complain about though is this server. What we could give them one shot qualifying if they make any mistakes.
I think it's just yeah, I mean, the thing is, Adrian, the reason why is that we can't actually reset the grid from the first race. So we're going to have to go through another qualifying stage in order to get the half-hour race underway. And it's just part and parcel of the way of Assetto Corsa, how it works. I think there's a few drivers that have dipped out of the chat. So, right, okay. So, looks like we're going to have a 10-minute qualifying session ahead of a 30-minute race, and qualifying will begin in just a couple of minutes' time here on the Grid Finder Invitational. So, we're going to go to a brief commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages. grid for effectively what's going to be the second half of this race. These things do happen, so thank you very much for keeping with us here on the official Grid Finder YouTube channel. Don't forget to like this video and also hit the subscribe button as well for any future events such as the Grid Finder podcast with the likes of Jem Hepworth have been on there, amongst others. We've got quite a few people appearing on that, which Tom Bunty has been hard at work doing, and really, really good to see. We had Lawrence Durasawa quite recently doing a podcast, but then also having a bit of an open lobby for people to join as well. So we are waiting for the drivers to jump into the server and get ready for their qualifying session. It's going to be 10 minutes. But also, Dylan, in some respects, we're going to see whether Miles Dixon might have an opportunity to grab pole position off of Dave Marshall, mightn't we?
Yeah, it throws a spanner in the works to everyone's sort of plans, but it gives those people who didn't maybe have the best of qualifying, maybe made a few mistakes, to sort of redeem themselves, and it definitely gives them a second chance. Those people that was involved in that lap 1 crash are going to be getting a massive sigh of relief with this, and can definitely, and are hopefully going to be making the most of it. And those are going to hope, those that weren't involved in any instances are going to hope to be consistent and maybe improve a little themselves and try and move their way up the order. So it gives a clean sheet for everyone to restart again, and hopefully maybe we get an even better race than we had before, and that's saying something because we was having a cracking race before the incident.
One of the interesting things, obviously, we again have to say a big thank you to the Virtual Reality Racing Club for doing the mods to the car. It's actually been tested by British Touring Car and TCR UK drivers, in real life drivers, to actually give feedback on the handling of the vehicle. Also with the hybrid drive, which is now, instead of success ballast in this year's Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship, and it really has spiced the ante in real life, but it's also spiced up the ante here tonight on the Grid Finder Invitational, the Touring Car Special here at Donington Park National, just shy of 2 miles in length. We're running on the national circuit. Qualifying is underway with about 6.5 minutes still to go in the session. Drivers still loading in to the server. We did have Fennick and I think it was, I'm just trying to remember now, it was Isha that had a 5th successive issue with Assetto Corsa today, so had to withdraw from the event itself. So we do have to say to Mr. Isan, thank you very much for joining us here at Grid Finder. There will be future invitationals in the pipeline here, so don't forget to keep your eyes posted on the relevant social media channels for Grid Finder on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so much more. You can head to grid-finder.com to get all the latest info. There's over 1,000 leagues that you can join on multiple different platforms such as Assetto Corsa, ACC, iRacing, R Factor 2, Race Room Experience, and so much more. So let's go back trackside as qualifying is nearly halfway through at the moment, and Mark Raddenbury, the man that was pretty much turfed out, exit stage left, right and up and down, and he was at the top of the timesheets, but Miles Dixon now sets a real benchmark, 1 minute 8.732. Jonathan Seville has just gone purple in sector 1. Now it's Dave Marshall, 27.2, nearly 27.2 seconds for the pole sitter in the first qualifying session. There's Lewis Edwards, currently sitting in 7th place at the moment, but we're not going to see a real respective lap time until the likes of Edwards, Seville, Marshall et al. Are going to set some lap times here, and Jonathan Seville goes quickest, 1 minute 8.584. And goes ahead of Miles Dixon by nearly 1/10.5. We're into the last 5 minutes of the qualifying session, actually just over 4.5 minutes ago, as Lewis Edwards uses a very interesting line through the entrance into Roberts. I think that's Tom Bunton just behind, and Tom O'Farrell is right up the exhaust pipes of the Grid Finder car as they go down the straightaway and heading into Redgate. Edwards now goes up into P4. Dave Marshall at the moment, only P3 at the minute, Dylan.
Yeah, I mean, he's just warming himself back up into it. We saw from the previous race and from the previous qualifying session, he has the pace. He was 6/10 quicker in the first qualifying, so we know Dave Marshall has it in him to do a lot better. So I wouldn't get too comfortable because there's just under 4 minutes left in the session to go. I think a lot of these drivers are going to improve, and we're going to see some Mark Raddenbury nearly piles into the back of who is that in front of him. A bit of a mistake in.
I think there's Tom Bunton there in front of him, just judging by the livery I can see in front.
Yeah, not really ideal when you're pushing on a lap, those sorts of instances. It's a problem with running behind a car in qualifying. If they make a mistake and you're so close to them, you're then going to have to take evasive action. It ruins your lap as well as theirs. And maybe you have to sort of think about maybe just leaving a little bit of space between the cars as Mark Raddenbury goes back into the pit lane there. So this is Kyle Filver, sorry. He's currently in 5th. He was running in 3rd, wasn't he, last time, or was he 2nd up the road?
He was 2nd, about 12.5 seconds behind Dave Marshall, and Dave Marshall has fired the warning shot across the bow with just over 3 minutes to go. And he's not far off of his qualifying lap time by about less than, 1.5 hundredths away. He's just put in a 1 minute 8.090, nearly 3.5 tenths quicker than Miles Dixon, who got to within 1/4 of a tenth. Let's not forget in the previous qualifying session. But then Dave Marshall went and eked out another 0.16 in the process in his final lap in qualifying. So again, Dave Marshall, oh my goodness me, hold on to your hats. We could be close of getting into the high 1 minute 7s. He's just gone purple, sector 1, purple, sector 2. I'm just waiting for Dave Marshall. And he's gone quicker still, 1 minute 8.051. Dave Marshall is proving a point, as if he wasn't leading the race by ending up in Derbyshire rather than Leicestershire. He's gone nearly 0.38 quicker than Miles Dixon. And again, this is the same trend is happening. Carl Felvis returns to garage with just under 2 minutes to go, and will have an opportunity to get out of pit lane, make his way around the circuit and go for another flying lap. And Felvis at the moment currently residing in P5 behind Positive Perception Racing's Jonathan Seville, who's back out on the circuit, going through McLean's, up the hill into Coppice, the double right-hander heading onto Starkey Straight. So we'll see if Seville is able to find a bit more time, ends up going rally crossing, going through the second part of Coppice, down Starkey Straight, over the little yomp. Doesn't really cause major differences in terms of the handling, but can at some point unsettle the car going into Roberts, especially when you're trying to nigh on straight line that chicane without having to use too much curbing, I might add.
Yeah, we said don't get too comfortable with Dave Marshall running away, but those bumps definitely can cause up some problems. But we didn't really see many of the instances coming down the back straight and towards Roberts, so maybe the drivers are pretty aware of how these bumps are going to make the car handle, and of them covered pretty well. This is Mick Sutton. He's currently running P7th, 1.8 seconds off the lead time of Dave Marshall, which, to be fair, the way Dave Marshall's been today, that is no mean feat being that far behind, because he's been he's in a league of his own today, in all fairness to him. So you're starting to think it is just really going to be a race for second, barring any mistakes.
Well, Mark Rannebury's up into P8 ahead of Tom Bunton. PVT Dancer from Odyssey Racing League rounds out the top 10 with a 1 minute 10.348. Jonathan Seville going down Starkey Straight on the approach into the chicane at Roberts. See if he does improve, because Seville is currently P4, 5.3 tenths off of Dave Marshall. On that particular occasion, it was a 1 minute 9.106. As looks like the timer has hit 0 for qualifying, and that could be pretty much it. We have had 14 cars. Mick Sutton locking up under braking, going through into the old hairpin. He's got a car just in front. Dave Marshall has pitted, and thereby will have taken pole position for the second time in a row this evening. As it looks like they're already getting their elbows out. We haven't even gotten the lights going out yet for the half-hour race, and both cars go off the circuit out of McLean's and then heading into Coppice. A little bit of a lock-up. Smoke flailing from the back end of the Coupe Relais Competition. But Mick Sutton now currently in 7th. Dustin Brown has gone up into 11th. That's Odyssey Racing League's Snooze. And Mick Sutton hard on the brakes into Roberts. Will there be an improvement from 8th position? Currently 1.817 seconds behind Dave Marshall, and Sutton pulls it into the pits. I think that has pretty much... Oh! Bit of argy-bargy in the entrance to the pit lane. Whoops, and Jonathan Seville goes P3 on his final effort, 1 minute 8.531 seconds. So Dave Marshall takes pole for the now time-adjusted race. So very soon we'll be getting things ready, and we'll wait for the drivers to ready up and start gridding onto the circuit. Once again, it will be a standing start. I mean, the first half of this Grid Finder Invitational had everything, didn't it, Dylan? I'm expecting very much more of the same, but I would say that in this half-hour race, this time-adjusted race thereof, there's going to be a few more risks being taken, aren't there?
Yeah, one thing that we didn't quite see though was pit stops from the lead group, which is what I'm really interested to see how the lead group with their strategy and how that will play out, because we only really saw people pitting when they was involved in little instances. So I'm really excited in this race to see how that will pan out and how each drivers will take to the strategy with the tyres and the pit stops. But yeah, the shorter race, I mean, we saw people taking major risks, and I think now we've got 30 minutes less on the clock. There's going to be even more sends and even more risks being taken from drivers, which makes it even more exciting for us, because we saw some brilliant overtakes, especially ones going up through Starkey's, Schwartz, and round the outside through McLean's and such. So I think we're going to see even more, and it kind of, maybe it's a hidden gem this, that we can get this short race where they're going to be taking more risks, and nonetheless it's going to be a brilliant race no matter what happens.
And it looks like it's going to be a sprint race, according to the event drivers Discord I've just seen. It looks like it's going to be a 30-minute flat-out sprint. Oh, that's going to be interesting, and especially tyre choice coming into play. I mean, Dave Marshall, no surprise, was on the softs. Miles Dixon in qualifying was on the mediums. Jonathan Seville also on the mediums. Lewis Edwards was the next placed of the soft shod Cupras. Carl Felvis, Tom O'Farrell, both on hard compound tyres, ran out the top 6 ahead of Mark Ranbury, the next of the medium shod competitors, with Mick Sutton hard, Tom Bunton medium, PVT Dancer 69 soft. Had a variety there on the tyre choices for qualifying, wouldn't you say there, Dylan?
Yeah, and also going into the race, what tyre choice they're going to have, because we saw all of the top 7 from last qualifying all on hard. So now with the shorter race, how will the drivers behave? Because we're not going to need the hard tyres anymore. We're going to be going on to the soft compound. So how will it behave for them with the leaders, as we see Dave Marshall on softs and Miles Dixon on mediums? We didn't see either of them in the race use those compounds. So this is something we haven't seen yet, and it makes it even more interesting to see how those cars will behave. Kyle Felvis on hards, Tom O'Farrell on hards as well. So they're the only ones really using the hard tyres, so they really think about trying to make it to the end. We saw the softs didn't really work out. It was Fettic, I believe, tried using the softs, didn't gain any places off the start, and then had to pit very early from them. So clearly they're not working out, so maybe they're not the optimal tyre. So maybe the mediums and Miles Dixon right now, this is probably his best chance with Dave Marshall on the softs. If they weren't working out for Fettic, maybe they can work out for Dave, but it just leaves more on the table that we don't know what's going to happen into this race.
Right, so the grid is going to be that Dave Marshall and Miles Dixon again will be on the front row. Jonathan Seville and Lewis Edwards, row 2. Carl Felvis and Tom O'Farrell, row 3. Mark Ranbury, Mick Sutton, Tom Bunton, and PVT Dancer 69 round out the top 10. Nick Karagiannis in 11th, head of Dustin Brown. XD Gamer 38, Devil and Giorgio rounding out the grid. We have lost a few drivers in the meantime, so we are going to have 15 competitors ready to rock and roll, and as soon as those red lights start showing up, we'll have 6 of them, and then the lights will go out. They'll then be released, and it will be pedal to the metal, the short blast down to Redgate Corner ahead of a 30-minute sprint race. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've got a soft drink beverage of your choice and your popcorn not ready, you've got possibly a short window in order to get that sorted out before the lights go out here at Donington Park. I think, again, the unpredictability with this 30-minute race, Dylan, is, again, we saw that unpredictability in spades. The amount of risk versus reward situations that drivers were putting themselves in. Of course, there is money up for grabs, £50 cash prize for the winning driver and a £50 cash prize for the winning team at the end of this invitational. Of course, there's going to be a lot of action, I think, and there's going to be elbows out very much most of the time.
Yeah, it's typical touring car racing. That's what we're here to see. We're going to get a good race. It's going to be exciting. We're going to see some sends. We're going to see some brilliant overtakes. And hopefully it can stay clean as well, because that's not something that we struggled with sometimes in the first race. We want to see all the drivers on track. We want to see these massive battles, and I think we're gonna be in for a good race here. Not like we've got some talent on this grid. We've got some quick drivers, but maybe as well, because with the instance we saw earlier, do you think there's going to be any bad blood between certain drivers that are still in here?
I don't think Mark Grandenbury will have any gripe to bear with any of the drivers that he was involved with in that earlier incident. That was going through the old hairpin on lap 1, and he managed to make some headway as well, did Mark Grandenbury. Tom Bunton was having a really good battle with Nick Karagiannis, and that was for 11th place before we had the server incident, which meant that we've had to sort of reset the ledger, so to speak. We're just over 60 seconds away from getting this race going. And a very good evening to Mr. David Christie, who's just decided to jump on in. A very good evening, Mr. Roland on the ropes, as is more commonly known on Twitter. But the timer is counting down. Just over 45 seconds remain until we let these Cupra Leon competitions loose for another 30 minutes. And you can see the air temperature 24 degrees, track temperature 42 degrees. And one of the biggest questions I have here, I mean, everyone I've seen has either decided hard or mediums. No soft tyres being chosen for this race. And that says to me, with the track temperature, the softs could quite literally burn up very, very quickly indeed here, Dylan.
Yeah, we saw Fetich use them, and they were not very good in the game. Nothing from the start. Had to pit very early, so they do not seem like they're going to be touching them, which is quite weird to say. But normally you'd want that quick tyre, especially in such a short race, but no, drivers don't want it.
Right, lights are red and they're out. We're back underway here for the restart for the half-hour second half of this Grid Finder Invitational Touring Car Special here at Donington Park National. As Dixon looking around the outside of Dave Marshall, going into Redgate corner, looks for the over-under, might get the job done on Marshall early, and I think he's sprinted ahead as they head through into Hollywood, down into the Craner curves. It's 2x2, hurrah. Dixon versus Marshall. Dixon's got the run going down into the old hairpin, and he's got the lead through on the very first lap. Brilliant stuff there from Miles Dixon to time it right, but now Marshall going through, and look at that for a curb hop from Dave Marshall to retake it, and that was going through into Starkey's Bridge and into Schwantz Curve, now into McLean's. Carl Felvis right on the back bumper of Miles Dixon as we look on board from the back of the roof of Dave Marshall. Miles Dixon in second, Lewis Edwards in fifth, and has got possibly, that's Tom O'Farrell right up the exhaust pipes. Jonathan Seville is actually to the outside of Lewis Edwards. That's going to be the battle for fourth. Edwards slots in, it's nearly three abreast. There's going to be contact there. Oh my goodness me. And then all of a sudden, that was, I think, that was possibly Jonathan Seville that went straight lining it off of Roberts. And luckily enough, has managed to rejoin the circuit.
Well, who's that? Miles Dixon is involved again. Chaos there. You're never going to end well going three abreast in towards Roberts. I think there was 4 cars involved there I saw going sideways of some sorts, but Dave Marshall under pressure at the start and just runs away with it. I mean, Dixon had the chance to sort of get his way through. He got past, and after a while it sort of ran out and Marshall was running off into the distance. Dixon's now actually down in 6th, so he's fallen a ways down, being involved in something. He's closing his way back up as we go through McLean's and on the run up towards Coppice. I mean, typical
Dixon,
sort of start.
Yeah, Dixon's been battling away with Mark Raddenbury. Raddenbury was briefly ahead for a fraction. They've got PVT Dancer 69 and Nick Karagiannis not too far adrift. They round out the top 8. Tom Farrell is just over 1.2 seconds ahead of Tom Bunton. Well, Tom Bunton's just lost another position down to 11th behind Mick Sutton. Carl Felvis, in the meantime, is ahead of Jonathan Seville in the battle for P2. We're on board with Seville at the moment. And that is Lewis Edwards. Oh, it's Ding Ding, seconds out, round 2 again. And Miles Dixon, if he gets a good run, he's 2 seconds off of the back bumper of Edwards. This could be another repeat of what we saw in the first half of the race itself earlier on, before the server dramas meant that we had to reset everything, redo qualifying, and have a half-hour sprint right up to the checkered flag. But Dave Marshall is not pulling away as quickly as he did in the previous half hour.
Well, time's changing. Carl Felvis, now maybe he's got some clean air. We saw it took him a while to get clean air. Sutton, oh, well held there. Round of applause to you, my friend. That is brilliant drifting, catching the car there from Mick Sutton. But he's going to get done there by Tom Bunton, and I think Dustin Brown as well is going to find his way through. No, he holds on to it. Tom Bunton, though, making the most of the misfortunes from Mick Sutton. A bit of a tap in towards Robert Chicane. Thankfully, Tom Bunton though stays on the track, and he sort of backed out there just in case there was an incident. So smart driving there from Mick Sutton, just being aware of the cars ahead.
David Christie coming in with the hashtag believe in Bunton. Tom Bunton now currently in 8th position, within a second of Tom O'Farrell, who rounds out the top 7 positions, as we're now heading in towards the completion of the first 6th of this 30-minute race. Mick Sutton keeps it very tight on the apex through Old Hairpin, as a little bit further behind. I think there's a bit of argy-bargy between PVT Dancer 69 and Nick Karagiannis. Very good evening to Dave Hedges, watching in the chat as well. I'm sure he's got some vested interest in a few drivers. Dave Marshall, however, is just over one. Well, it's getting closer and closer still. The gap is about 1.2 seconds. It does fluctuate on the timing tower on the left-hand side of your screens, but Carl Felvis trying to close in on Dave Marshall. Jonathan Seville in 3rd place, as Mick Sutton locks up big time, back end snakes to the left-hand side, and still keeps it pinned through Roberts. Again, another save. I think Mick Sutton at this moment has more lives than a black cat at the minute.
Well, if you're not close enough to make some interesting battles, you may as well start doing a bit of dancing on with your car. And he's doing some impressive saves, but can we get an impressive move here from Edwards as he tucked into the back of Seville? Round 2, as you said, from the prior race, up towards McLean's. Can he find a way through? No. Just trying to stick to the back of them as they run up to Coppice. Blind corner here for the driver. It's going to be very interesting. It's very easy to make a mistake for her, but no, they're through cleanly. Can he get a good run onto the back straight? Bit wide, but a pair of them tucked into the slipstream row up towards Robert Chicane. Can Edwards find his way through on Seville? We know even if Edwards get past, Seville's always going to fight back. We saw it from the first race. These two will probably go at it for the entirety of the 24 minutes remaining, and they're going to make it a good battle as well.
Indeed, 24 minutes to go in this time-adjusted 30-minute race. Lewis Edwards battling away with Jonathan Seville for 3rd position on the road. And not too far behind is the fast-recovering Miles Dixon. So that's going to be for 3rd, 4th and 5th. Edwards really trying to close on in through Hollywood and into the Craner curves. Tom Bunton runs a little bit wide through Redgate, hits the kitty litter. And who's that that's possibly got past? That might have been Mick Sutton. And then just behind will be Dustin Brown in, that will be Snooze from Odyssey Racing League, rounding out the top 10 positions. But Edwards very much putting the pressure clearly on Jonathan Seville. And Dave Marshall is only 1.3 seconds up the road. Miles Dixon runs a little bit wide coming out of McLean's. But Edwards very much trying to put Jonathan Seville into that pressure cooker type situation.
Yeah, trying to just build up and try and sort of work your way into a move here. A bit like we said in the 60-minute race, what would happen to try and be a bit smarter, sort of force your opponent into a bit of a mistake. So far, Seville is not budging. We saw it from a lot in the first race as well. Seville was just happy to let Dixon and Edwards fight out a bit and let them get on with it. So it seems to be a tough nut to crack, Jonathan Seville, and Lewis Edwards is going to have to throw the kitchen sink at him, really, to try and get past him. And even that's going to invite Miles Dixon, and we're just going to have an absolute repeat. And I'm not really going to complain from that, because these guys are producing brilliant racing so far from the first race, and they're back at it again for the second, after the server issue, second race, they're going to go at it again with 22 and a bit minutes to go. just sticking to the back of him right now. Miles Dixon slowly closing after his incident earlier in the race. So far, though, Jonathan Seville is holding Lewis Edwards back mightily fine, and he's not really budged, or he's not being moved about on the track. He's calm and collected right now, Jonathan Seville. As you say, that drifting a bit wide through Coppice, and that now might open up a door as he goes a bit defensive to the right hand side of the track. Lewis Edwards, can he get a move in towards turn 1? No, Jonathan Seville ends up pulling away down the straight there actually, so I don't quite know what that was about. No slipstream, but a bit of a mistake into the braking zone. Lewis Edwards closes right up onto the back of him, tucked into the slipstream, then up towards Redgate. Can Edwards make a move? Done. Jonathan Seville, though, again down the straight, pulling ahead. Almost like it's got a bit more straight line speed there, even though they're in the same car. So maybe in the braking zone, Edwards closing up, but on the exit, Seville just gets that power on a little bit earlier.
I think what Lewis Edwards is trying to do to Jonathan Seville is maybe try and put the pressure on enough that Jonathan Seville makes an unforced error, and that will be basically the opportunity for Lewis Edwards to have both big barn doors open at the same time and casually walk through. And that is what can happen in touring car racing. And with the amount of lockups from both drivers, Miles Dixon is still trying to close on in. Dixon is about 1 second behind these two, as Edwards again through Coppice, taking a tighter apex. Now this is going to give him a good momentum carry coming down Starkey Straight as they head towards Roberts once again. So you've got the picture in picture. Edwards pulls to the left-hand side through into Roberts, maybe to carry the speed through. Seville goes bumping over the curbs, so does Edwards, and Edwards gets a better run coming out of Roberts. Now latches onto the back bumper towards the outside through Redgate. Lewis Edwards and Jonathan Seville go door banging into Redgate, and there is Miles Dixon, and that gap through that contact between the two battling over third position has given Miles Dixon a lifeline.
Jonathan Seville saying, "You shall not pass." So Miles Dixon is saying, "I want a piece of this," as Edwards finally gets his way past. He's been coming for a few laps there, and now Miles Dixon is right onto the back of Jonathan Seville as well. So repeat of race 1, it's all going to kick off, and this is what we're here to see.
Indeed, Lewis Edwards and Jonathan Seville going textbook touring car style through the Craner curves, and it was Edwards that had the better measure of the situation and got through to take third position away from Seville. But Dixon is right in the wheel tracks of Seville in fourth position, as Dixon runs very, very wide coming out of Coppice, and he's got the whole shot, and he's got past before they've even hit Roberts. So whether there was an issue there for Jonathan Seville, who now in the last half a lap there, Dylan, has dropped from third to fourth, and the fastest lap of the race, Carl Felvers, who's within the best part of a second, has just put in the fastest lap of the race. Well, Lewis Edwards has just done that, 1 minute 8.516, just under half a second slower than Dave Marshall's qualifying lap time of 1 minute 8.05 for the second half of this Gridfinder Invitational. I think Marshall thought, well, I got away in the first one. I don't think I'm going to be able to get away like I did in the first one, where I ended up in Derbyshire.
Yeah, Felvis is he's wanting a piece of Derbyshire as well. He's a bit sick of Leicestershire now, so he's hunting down Marshall, and he's doing a pretty good job of keeping in touch. And all it takes is one little mistake from Dave Marshall, or if they start catching up to back markers, which we saw happen earlier. So if they start catching back markers, anything can happen. And Marshall there, you can see Felvis is going to be in his mirrors, so maybe that adds that little bit of pressure. Now Marshall knows that Felvis is there. Maybe, do you think Carl Felvis can, just having his presence there, could force Dave Marshall into a bit of a mistake?
Possibly, but PVT Dancer 69 has just done a move past Tom Bunton, who now drops to 10th position as we're coming towards 18 minutes of this race still to go. So 12 minutes of fast and furious touring car action here at Gridfinder Invitational, for the touring car special here at Donington Park National. And PVT Dancer pulling a little bit of a gap over Tom Bunton. Mick Sutton a little bit further up the road to the tune of the best part of just over over 3.5 seconds, as the timing keeps on ebbing and flowing like a pendulum. But at the moment, with the way things stand, it is a 1-2-3 for Virtual Reality Racing Club. A big thank you to them for pointing it out, because I was quickly looking at the driver lineups for tonight. And with the amount of action, I don't think I've even been able to glance once until just now. But Miles Dixon upholding the flag for Positive Perception Racing in 4th position, along with teammate Jonathan Seville and Mark Rannebury in that crew as well. Looks to have been a last-minute replacement for David Ressel, who was scheduled to take part in that team for tonight's Gridfinder Invitational. And Jonathan Seville is trying to close on in to Miles Dixon. And Seville runs a little bit deep off of the braking zone into Redgate. That gives Dixon a little bit more of an opportunity to pull away, heading through into... and Dave Hedges saying, I couldn't race. What, did Mark Rannebury not let you into his clan, David? I'll have a chat with you about that later after this is finished. But Jonathan Seville goes rally crossing, coming out of the old hairpin, loses a bag full of momentum, and that has given Miles Dixon that get out of jail free card a little bit, because the gap between them has expanded to, well, it expanded to nearly as high as 7.5 tenths of a second. So they now go through Coppice once again, as we're just under a minute and a half away from the halfway point of this 30-minute race.
One thing that I've just noticed, the leaders have just approached some back markers. I think Kyle Felvis is now just clearing them. Dave Marshall is clearing them. As you can see, that gap's now approaching 3 seconds. So Felvis struggling to clear them, and now that battle for third should meet them all. Edwards just got past Felvis. Is Felvis in the pit?
Oh, Marshall just got tangled. That was Marshall, and he just got collected going through Redgate. Felvis is now... Oh, you can see the amount of damage. There is a damage model on this, 50%. The front bumper has got a significant amount of damage. The left side door panels have got damage, and now he's gone into battle with Jonathan Seville. Felvis was nearly all crossed up coming through the exit of the, well, the second third of the Craner curves. So damage is now playing a part into this race. 50% damage on these cars, that's the damage model. And some have gotten away with a lot more than others. Miles Dixon now up into P3, chasing down Lewis Edwards, who's 3.1 seconds behind Dave Marshall.
What?
Kyle Felvis has now dropped another position. He's behind Jonathan Seville. So Felvis, that damage, I think, is taking its toll on how the car's handling and how it's responding to the inputs from Kyle Felvis there, Dylan.
Where did he really pick the initial damage up from, though? Was it the back markers? I saw he was approaching back markers over Coppice and maybe down in trying to clear them at Roberts or something, but it's... Yeah, just got onto the main straight and just started dropping down the order. Caught me definitely by surprise, so... Unsure what happened there. Miles Dixon trying to chase Lewis Edwards. And this is the first time, really, Lewis Edwards has had some clean air. In the first race, he was always in battle with someone. Even if he was ahead, there was always right on his tail. But Miles Dixon's got a bit of a second gap to him, and Lewis Edwards has a bit of breathing room for once, and he might be enjoying this, and now he's actually in second as well. And if Dave Marshall, we saw him get tangled up in towards Redgate, so maybe if he has any damage, Lewis Edwards can start making the most of it now as well in the final 14 minutes.
So it's no longer a 1-2-3 for Virtual Reality Racing Club, because we now have effectively Miles Dixon for Positive Perception Racing in third place. Jonathan Seville, so it's a 1-2-5 for VRRC. For Positive Perception, it's a 3-4 at the moment. But on the way things stand, obviously with the incidents being reviewed post-race here at the Gridfinder Invitational, the results will stand as provisional until they get confirmed. So the stewards are going to have a very, very busy night once this is all said and done. We've closed the broadcast for another time here at Gridfinder. Kyle Felvis, again now starting to close in on Jonathan Seville. Looks like he's got his second wind as the VRRC driver. Gap now half a second between the pair as they both have a little bit of tyre lock-up. Going through into the old hairpin. We're right on board with Jonathan Seville on the in-car cam. Up the hill through Starkey's Bridge and Schwantz Curve. Into the right as the brakes start squealing on application through into McLean's. It's really good to see the way that the car sort of, they have to rotate the car coming through. And, oh, look at the closing speed. There's Kyle Felvis, and he was trying to go towards the inside into Roberts on Jonathan Seville. Who's going to make the apex first? It's Seville, but Felvis bumping over the curbs, going through into the exit of Roberts. I don't think this battle is far from over. They are less than half a second apart, but Felvis, if he gets a good run, Seville could be in the danger zone.
Yeah, we've already seen Seville under pressure once. In the first bit, we didn't see him making any mistakes, and once people started getting onto the back of him, really in this race, we saw him start to really make some mistakes when the pressure started coming onto him, and Felvis is right all over the Ray bumper as they're going towards the old hairpin. A pair of them locking up in sync, though, as they're going to go through Starkeys and Swartz uphill. You think the hybrid system, both of them probably going to be putting it to the limit there, but Felvis definitely has the hybrid going at the top speed. Massive advantage round the outside. Can he go up McLean's? Oh, he thinks about it. He's pushed wide, though. But he's still in touch. Can he go round the outside of Coppice? It's not a place you'd really want to go round the outside. Tries to get the switch back a bit deep there for Seville. And that is a brilliant move there by Felvis. They're still going to be side by side all the way down straight. We saw Felvis use his hybrid system up towards McLean's. Is it now time? Yes, Seville does start using himself and then gets that top speed advantage. So maybe goes back to the strategic, where do you use it? Because we saw up towards McLean's Felvis use it, and on the way back there, Seville use it to defend it, but up towards Redgate we go. It's far from over. Felvis goes to the outside, back to the inside, back to the outside, in towards Redgate, really trying to force a mistake from Seville. Bit deep there for Felvis, though. Really misses the apex, but wide goes Seville. So it's still not over. Down through Hollywood, up towards the crane of curves we go. Steep drop here, through 3, up towards the old hairpin at 4. Inside line for Seville. Bit deep, no, he holds on to it very nicely, but Felvis has got a very good run as they're going to run uphill again, up towards McLean's, through Starkeys, round the outside at Schwartz. Can he get it done to go to the inside line for McLean's? This is brilliant racing from the pair of them, leaving the space very clean, round the outside. Brilliant defending there, though, from Jonathan Seville, and he's still holding on to this position as we go up towards McLean's.
Yep, and all sideways for Seville. That gives Felvis the opportunity he needed. Seville loses a bag full of momentum. Excuse me, and Felvis now up into 4th place and away and clear. XD Gamer in the meantime is battling away with Devil, I believe, and that's going to be that's side by side heading into Schwantz Curve. Now through into McLean's. XD Gamer could get the run. All bit of a lock up, and it's nearly XD Gamer goes rally crossing on the inside of McLean's. 2 wheels on the grass up towards the approach into Coppice. There is a 4-car scrap. There is Devil in 13th, and then all of a sudden it's just like the drivers, they're getting into the final 10 minutes, and depending on the tyre choice that they've used, a lot of the field, now I'm looking at it from this perspective, the top 8 went on the hard, well, make that the top 9 went on the hard compound tyres. The top shod medium compound car is Tom Bunton in 10th position, as Miles Dixon now is within earshot of Lewis Edwards. And that is the battle for P2. Dave Marshall is about 4 seconds up the road and has 9 minutes and 20 still remaining to hopefully capitalise for being the winning driver here at the Gridfinder Invitational. Miles Dixon runs over both sets of curbs through Roberts. Will probably be using the hybrid assist, going down the straightaway into Redgate. Not close enough yet to have a bit of a sniff or a look up the inside of Lewis Edwards, and if Edwards locks up like that a bit more going through into Hollywood and down into the old hairpin, Miles Dixon has an opportunity to put that car into P2.
Traffic head as well, that's probably going to play a massive factor as they run up the hill on the exit of the old hairpin. As he get out the way, well, it should stick before rejoining as it runs wide, so no back markers then. Going to have a nice clean battle between them uphill. Is Miles Dixon using the hybrid system? Surely one of them is, because the pressure's on here in the final 8 minutes, trying to take a tighter line there by Miles Dixon. Gains a slight bit in the braking zone up towards Coppice. This is going to be crucial. Gains a lot in the braking zone, cutting a bit of the corner, both taking a bit of a tight line. Now running wide, Miles Dixon massively. That's not going to help him. Dipping a bit of a wheel onto the grass there. And now down the back straight, hybrid system definitely going to be in use for the pair of them as they walk towards the Roberts chicane. Not close enough for either of them. All very late on the brakes there. Miles Dixon just about gets it slowed down, and a little kiss on the rear to Lewis Edwards just to let him know he's there. But that could have ended catastrophically.
I bet Edwards is looking in his mirrors left and right and everywhere possible. Lock up again for Edwards going into Redgate. Dixon just over 2.5 tenths of a second adrift as the cheers are coming in for Snooze and PVT Dancer for Odyssey Racing League. But Dixon a little bit further away going down through Craners. Edwards nearly locking up the back, and he goes wide coming out of Old Hairpin into Starkey's Bridge. Through into Schwantz Curve. Both will be using the hybrid assist. And now brakes definitely squilling away like a good one, going through into McLean's. Both second and third place drivers run a little bit wide coming out of McLean's, now into Coppice. Edwards and Dixon take the same racing line. Dixon a little bit wider coming out of the second half of Coppice. And now down Starkey Straight. 7 minutes still to go, and Dave Marshall is leading the way. Tom Bunton battling away with Dustin Brown, aka Snooze. This is for 10th position. They're about 6.4 seconds behind. And Dave Marshall, where on earth did that lap time come from? 1 minute 7.781. That was quicker than his lap time in qualifying. And Lewis Edwards gets a touch from Miles Dixon, and Edwards around and into the kitty litter. And that's off of the very first corner out of Redgate. Oh, dearie me. That is possibly going to be another one for the stewards to look at. But Miles Dixon went for the move. Edwards trying to shut the door. There was inevitably going to be some form of contact as Dave Marshall again puts in a 26.867 first sector. Fastest of the race so far. So it seems like Dave Marshall has really managed to keep these tyres in check. And that is Lewis Edwards. And I think Miles Dixon has done the sporting thing as if to say, sorry about that. I'll let you back through and let's commence battle once again.
I think they just want us to have some brilliant hard-fought racing there. But yeah, sportsmanship to the max there for Miles Dixon. So brilliant stuff from him, letting him through, recognising his mistakes and maybe saving the stewards a bit of a job there. So we can commence for another round of these two going at it. So I was really enjoying it as we go into the final 6 or so minutes through the final chicane. We go once again. Dixon versus Edwards. Edwards we saw starting to make a few mistakes, maybe starting to feel the pressure, a bit of door-to-door contact as they got towards Redgate, and Dixon just forces his way through. Well, the contact happened long before the braking zone, and there's both drivers going a bit deep there. Edwards more so than Dixon, and now Dixon can probably run off into the distance now.
Well, Felvis was closing in quickly on Edwards, so has Felvis is about half a second adrift as Edwards and Felvis now make their way through into the old hairpin. Dixon still now holding on to second, is about 1.3 seconds up the road from Edwards. There's Devil in 13th position, battling away with the likes of XD Gamer, and that's Tom Bunton actually. So Tom Bunton trying to get through. Has to avoid very quickly indeed. Just under 5 minutes to go, and Carl Felvis is within 3/10 of Lewis Edwards. This is going to be interesting because these two are teammates. They will have a fair battle, and the one biggest rule about racing is never take out your teammate. Carl Felvis very close to the back bumper of Lewis Edwards, but Felvis runs wide coming out of Roberts. That could hand the opportunity for Jonathan Seville to come back into the fray. Felvis goes to the right, Seville to the outside and pulls past on the main straightaway. So very close call indeed. So that means the cars in the top 5, you've got 3 of them are from VRRC, so that's first, third and fifth, and Positive Perception, second and fourth.
It's a good day in the office for both of those, but where's Seville come from? Completely forgot he was here, and now all of these little battles coming from, one by one, everyone's coming back into the picture. It's like a reunion sort of such, but Kyle Felvis's car is not looking pretty, especially on the side, on the left-hand side. You can see those dents there, and he's still racing hard, so credit to him. Despite the damage he has, he's still racing hard, and he's still in the top 5, so it's not over yet. A bit deep there, close to the back of Jonathan Seville going in towards Coppice. Holds onto it nicely though, and with 3.5 minutes to go, there's still anyone's game really for the top 5 positions. Are definitely going to be changing. The racing, it's far from over here.
Yeah, we're on to lap number 24, so with the timer now counting down. Oh, XD Gamer 38 getting a little bit of a touch. That's down the main start-finish straight. And making short to try and see if that... Oh, that was very close indeed, going through Redgate Corner. Once again, XD Gamer, 2 wheels on the grass off of the curbing, but still keeps the throttle planted to the floor, heading down through the Exeter Craners and then into the braking zone for the old hairpin. XD Gamer running a little bit wide, decides to also go rally crossing. We've seen quite a bit of that during this race, but with Dave Marshall now making his way through Coppice, it's probably going to be with the speed that he's got, the pure pace that he's got in this race car. I would hazard a guess that when we complete lap number 24, we'll have more than likely 3 more laps remaining of this race. Carl Felvis doing a great job at the moment, keeping Jonathan Seville very, very honest indeed. So can he bring another car from VRRC up into the top 4 positions?
Good battles going on, yeah. About 3 laps to go as they come across the line. I think it's actually only going to have 2 now, at least for these two. So it's 2 laps. It's going to be a shame it's going to end, but let's end it with a bang here. Felvis versus Seville. Both drivers had their moments this race, but it's going to be a good battle nonetheless. All on the line now. Classic touring car racing coming up for you. Going to be scrappy. It's going to be good as a few cars go off into the background there, I believe, at Redgate. They're going to have a lot of traffic going to be approaching as well, so that could throw a spanner into the works of these two. But Seville right now, bridging a nice gap to Felvis. This is Tom Bunton pulling ahead from the little squabble behind him, and that is actually the group of cars up ahead from these two in the battle for 4th.
Yeah, Nick Cardagianis and also Dustin Brown, aka Snooze from Odyssey Racing League, embroiled in a close-fought battle for P11. Make that P10, so 3 cars squabbling over the final position in the top 10, and that scores points tonight. A minute and a quarter remaining on the clock. Tom Bunton trying to go defensive on Nick Cardagianis from Positive Perception Racing. And Cardagianis locking up under brakes. Bunton bumping over the curbs through the exit of Roberts and keeps that very much planted. Whereas Carl Felvis have got back marker traffic. This could give an opportunity for Jonathan Seville to stay in 4th as we've got 48 seconds remaining. Dave Marshall, in the meantime, is making his way through into Starkey's Bridge and Schwantz Curve. So 37 seconds on the clock remaining. That could be the difference between whether Dave Marshall, with a considerable gap that he has over Miles Dixon, which is stretched to just north of 12.7 seconds, whether he's going to make it in time before the checkered flag falls. Carl Felvis right on the back of Jonathan Seville, looking to the outside as there's 2 cars in front of them. They both negotiate the traffic very, very expediently, and a little bit of a touch left front to right rear as they make their way through. There's Dave Marshall. He's about to cross the line. It's going to be close. 3, 2, 1. He's slowing. He's going to take the checkered. And that, for my money, says that Dave Marshall wins the Gridfinder Invitational race here, as Felvis and Seville side by side into Robertson. Felvis has made the move. Felvis has made the move to take P4. But we've actually got one more lap, I've just been informed. So Dave Marshall will more than likely win this quite comfortably, because it's now 11.8 seconds. But Carl Felvis doing a great move on the penultimate lap of this race on Jonathan Seville. Just absolutely licked the touch paper, sent it up the inside of Jonathan Seville. So that brings VRRC to 1st, 2nd and 4th in this race. And there's still over a half lap to go for these drivers here, as XD Gamer now coming through Redgate, battling away with Devil, and Devil runs wide. XD Gamer 38 makes it through, coming through Hollywood.
Oh, you said Dave Marshall's going to comfortably win this. I don't think it's going to be a comfortable last lap for Carl Felvis, as Jonathan Seville is going to still be on the back of him, and he's going to be hungry and feel a bit mugged off after that final sort of a corner move. But Dave Marshall, like you said, comfortably wins the Gridfinder Invitational. Miles Dixon should come across the line out with the final chicane. You can see in the background he will take 2nd. Lewis Edwards will take 3rd. And Felvis looks like he has just held on to Jonathan Seville to take 4th.
So, wow. a 1st, a 2nd and a 4th. That is a considerable amount of points for Virtual Reality Racing Club. And looking at it, so that's... Oh, my goodness me. So 25 for 1st, 18... that's going to be 25 for 1st, so 40 points. Add another 12, that's 52 from the top 3. And there is Devil coming across the line, but VRRC... But it looks like, well, Dave Marshall is the Gridfinder Invitational Touring Car winner, and it looks like Team VRRC have won in terms of the league. So, I mean, congratulations to them all. Obviously, those results, there is going to be some post-race investigation, of course, as always is in touring car racing. We know that the stewards are going to be busy post-race, but, you know, provisionally, Dave Marshall, he was miles ahead. He was in Derbyshire when everyone else was racing in Leicestershire there, Dylan.
Yeah, he was clear from everyone. Flawless. I don't really think he was involved in any instances where he would lose out. on a post-race penalty. So flawless race from Dave Marshall, comfortably winning and well deserved for him.
Indeed, and really good to see that Odyssey Racing League, actually, both drivers finished P9 and P11, so great job by them. It's their first invitational here at Gridfinder, and it's been a pleasure having them along with us, along with all the other teams as well, in terms of Positive Perception Racing, Semi-Racing, Virtual Reality Racing Club, ATE Motorsport, Gridfinder, Java Sim Esports and Odyssey Racing League having joined us here tonight for... So
there's multiple cars alongside each other, but luckily enough I sort of managed to get a clean enough break in both races to sort of tackle that part reasonably clean, and yeah, from then on it was just sort of set my delta lap time and just keep trying to repeat it and pull the gap really, and keep your eyes forward, not in your mirror.
Well, I mean, the other impressive thing, buddy, was that in the second part of the race, you actually set a better lap time than your qualifying lap, if memory serves me correctly. You dipped into the 107.7s. I mean, that was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm truly honest, it was a little bit expected. Obviously, in qualifying, we don't have the hybrid system available, and I think I probably used about 4 hybrids on that lap. So you gain a significant amount of horsepower, and you get 10 seconds worth of it as well. So basically, any big incline or any acceleration point, press the button, and it was taking about 0.3 off each time I pressed it. So yeah, I managed to take about a second off what my usual delta lap was for that race. So yeah, really good, strong result, and super happy for Virtual Reality Racing Club. Big thanks to Rich for entering us into this championship, and yeah, it's had its dramas with the server restart, but you know, these things happen. and onwards and upwards, and it's looking good.
Yeah, I think it was. We have to say a big thank you to you guys at VRRC with regards to the mods that have been done to this Cooper Leon competition. You know, with the hybrid assist, the opportunity to have 3 different compounds of tyres. We really do appreciate the fact that you guys have come to race with us here at Gridfinder, and well done tonight once again, Dave.
Yeah, I mean the car really is fantastic, Alex. You know, I mean it's not the easiest car to drive, probably from what you saw tonight. You know, the car is leery on the opening laps. The back end is quite lively. But so is the real car. The real cars are leery to drive, and this is a true replication of, you know, the best way to demonstrate that. You know, we've got British touring car drivers using this car to train for British touring cars, which is brilliant. So yeah, we're really happy with where it's at, and top job, Alex. Thanks for the comps tonight as well.
No worries at all. Dave Marshall from VRRC, our Gridfinder Invitational winning driver tonight. Thank you very much, buddy. Let's see if we can get another driver in for an interview. Let's see if we can speak to Positive Perception's Miles Dixon, who was definitely in the trenches a lot of the time during the racing. Miles, good to have you with us. Well done tonight. I know that you were definitely in the trenches, weren't you, this evening?
Yeah, I was, but it all came out overall.
I think one of the other things with regards to, you know, just showing the real sporting side of the incident between yourself and Lewis Edwards, you know, for you to give that position back, and to then a couple of corners later you were back at it like nothing had happened. I mean, that really just shows how, you know, there is still chivalry in racing, and you just thought, well, I've made a mistake, I've held my hands up to it, I'll let Lewis pass and we'll just go back at it again.
Yeah, it was my fault. I broke a bit late and then tried to throw it on the inside, but managed to catch his rear end and spun him off, so I said I need to wait for him. So I owned up for that.
But still, to be in the top 3 at the end of this race, I mean, despite all the server dramas that we had, you know, after what was a pretty good first half hour, you know, it was just like nothing had happened, and everyone just decided, yeah, it's touring cars, we're going to have some fun. It's Donington Park. I mean, I know that you're normally on Assetto Corsa Competizione, but what was it like coming back onto the Assetto Corsa platform and giving the old touring cars a go?
It was good. It felt a bit weird at first because couldn't get used to the braking on the cars. But after a few laps and testing with my teammate Johnny, worked out well.
Indeed, and of course, you know, Positive Perception, I think got 2 cars in the top 5, so a pretty good result for the team, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it was a good result, and it was last minute getting invited by Mark to race for him, so we accepted that.
Brilliant. Well done tonight, Miles, and congratulations, and thanks very much for joining us here on Gridfinder.
Thank you. Take care.
So, Miles Dixon from Positive Perception Racing. And last but by no means least, we're going to go to rounding up the top 3. Lewis Edwards from Virtual Reality Racing Club joins us. Lewis, just like Miles, you were in the thick of the action. I don't think we kept our eyes taken off of you at any point during this race, because it was flat out door rubbing, paint swapping. It's how touring car racing should be.
Yeah, I'd like to say we both did that on purpose to get screen time for our respective leagues, but no, we just absolutely went for it. It's all a bit of fun in the end of the day. We definitely no quarters held there. We really, you know, went at it, but it was all good. And yeah, you know, there was a bit of swearing in our respective chats probably when it wasn't going so well for us, but then we had a little chat at the end and a laugh in the waiting room. But yeah, really good to get a P3 out of it in the end. It's kind of my first race in a front wheel drive car competitively, so I wasn't expecting a podium, but I did put in a lot of hours practice for it, and I'm glad it paid off for us in the end.
Well done tonight, Lewis, and thanks for joining us here on Gridfinder, and hopefully we'll have you guys back at some point in the not too distant future, as in Team Virtual Reality Racing Club as well.
Yeah, thank you guys, and I look forward to whatever race we join you guys in next.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Lewis Edwards from VRRC. But Dylan, you know, despite what's happened, we've had 2 fantastic half-hour races, 2 qualifying sessions. Dave Marshall is king of the touring cars here on Gridfinder Invitational. But we had, you know, you and I were thoroughly captivated for over an hour's worth of racing, including both qualifying sessions.
Well, it was brilliant. I mean, like I said, it was a bit of a hidden gem via the server instance. It got us an even better race because the shorter race meant people were more sort of argy-bargy. They more risky with the sort of overtakes, and we got some brilliant racing, clean racing. We saw a good amount of sportsmanship as well. So it's the whole package, and I've really enjoyed doing it.
Brilliant. I think really to close things off, we're going to bring Tom from Gridfinder in. Tom, you must have had an absolute blast tonight on these touring cars on Assetto Corsa.
Yeah, that was fun. I don't usually race. I'm usually kind of in the background trying to, make sure that everyone knows the race is happening and helping with servers and setting stuff up. But no, I thought I'd give this one a go, and it was a lot of fun. I was happy with some of my faster lap times, but I didn't have the consistency because I haven't had the practice, sadly. But no, the racing was really good. The VRRC guys did really, really well. So did the POSPA team. So it was a good race to be part of, and I was just making sure that I was getting out of the way at the right times. But we had a little hiccup in the middle with the server, so that's lesson learned. The nature of these invitationals is that we do a different platform, different game, different style of racing nearly every month. So we have to learn how to do it afresh pretty much every single month. So yeah, apologies for the issues there, but massive thanks to Craig as always for putting in all the work over the last couple of weeks to get this running, and the push right at the end there for recruitment for our drivers. So thanks Craig, I appreciate all the work that you do, and obviously thanks to you guys for the fantastic broadcast and commentary, and of course VRRC. So VRRC had a couple of four drivers in tonight. It did incredibly well, and obviously set us up with the mod, which drove fantastically. So yeah, thank you to everyone who's made tonight happen, and we'll be back next month with another different format.
Indeed, Tom from Gridfinder, thank you very much, buddy, and good to catch up with you as always. So, with that being said, that really rounds up the Gridfinder Invitational with myself, Alex, and Dylan being your commentators for tonight's proceedings. This broadcast was a SimSports Solutions broadcast, so don't forget, head to gridfinder.com for further information where you can get involved in over 1,000 leagues from a multitude of different platforms in terms of Assetto Corsa, the platform we've been on tonight, F1 2021, which we were on a couple of weeks ago, Assetto Corsa Competizione, Race Room Experience, R Factor 2, and so much more. Until next time, thanks for watching. We'll see you again very soon. Good night.